Thank you, Tony. It's really exciting when our alums go out, take the education that they received here and the experiences that they got here, and go out and do things where they can find their passion and make an impact in the world. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but we're excited in the way that Kurt Workman has done that. He is the CEO and co-founder of Owlet Baby Care. He's dedicated the last decade to revolutionizing infant health, leading Owlet's growth from its inception and overseeing research and development of the company's pipeline, including the creation of Owlet Smart Sock and its connected nursery ecosystem of products. He has also served as a member of Owlet's board of directors since he co-founded the company and continues to provide key oversight of Owlet's product portfolio and growth opportunities. Kurt has been named to Forbes' prestigious 30 Under 30 list and recognized by Utah Business Magazine's 20 in their 20s. He studied business and engineering at BYU, and he's a proud father to 3 children. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our speaker today, Kurt Workman. And I failed to announce before I did all that excitement there that our closing prayer will be given by Becky Stevens, an undergraduate student in civil engineering, upon completion of the lecture. So Kurt, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I think the last memory I have of being in this building was listening to, it was a lecture series just like this. It was the guy who designed the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world in Dubai, and you guys are stuck with me, so I'm sorry about that. I really love BYU. I love being here. It's just such a great opportunity. Thank you, Tony, for the opening prayer, to just be able to start the learning process or any meeting with remembering what's most important and connecting with our Heavenly Father. Don't take that for granted, because it goes away as you move on in your professional careers and the companies you work for. It's a special opportunity. I'm a dad. I'll kind of click to the next slide here. I've got 3 beautiful kids, and my oldest is 8, my youngest is 3, my daughter is 6 years old. My oldest, who's 8 years old, he's going to be an engineer for sure. We've got a little Arduino kit. We do projects together. His favorite tool is a calculator. He loves math, and he's really excited. So hopefully he can be here in a few years. My wife and I both came to BYU. We met in high school and came to BYU together. And we're from Farmington, Utah, which is just north of Salt Lake. We love to go skiing and camping with our kids and love this area. We're also big BYU fans, so we love to come down to the games. It doesn't matter what game's playing on the TV. My kids ask which color's BYU. They haven't gotten the colors down yet, but they love. We love watching BYU sports. So, I started. I want to just start by acknowledging that Owlet would not be here without BYU. The first office we were in was just a few blocks away from campus. The first competitions we won were here on campus. And I'm really convinced that the best time to start a company is in college. First, because you don't know any better when you're in college. You don't know, what you're getting yourself into. I remember 3 years into Owlet, I was meeting with one of my mentors, and I said, I can't believe how hard this is. I want to give up. And he's like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you didn't know how hard this was going to be, because you probably wouldn't have started. And at that point, the answer was true. But now, several years later, you kind of get away from those early tough days, and you go, that was totally worth it. The second reason is that your costs are really low. Rent's less expensive, food's less expensive, you're not spending as much money. And that's kind of what it takes in the early days to get a company off the ground. You have to be really scrappy. And the third, and I think most important reason, is everybody wants to help a student. We would call, we got to meet with the CEO of Vivint, the CEO of Qualtrics, like any CEO we wanted to go pick their brain and learn from. All we had to do was say, hey, we're a student, we're students, and we want to learn from you, and we want to pick your brain. Can we buy you lunch? And it would open up, every door. We called one of our biggest competitors and said, hey, we're students, and we want to talk to you. We want to learn from one of your regulatory folks. And they connected us to the right person there, and we had an hour phone call with one of the experts in the industry. So being a student opens up a lot of doors. In addition, BYU has given so much to Owlet. We got our first $400 from the Student Innovator of the Year competition, and we used it to make a prototype and to do some breadboards. The first prototype we made, I went and bought a sheet of neoprene fabric And I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a sewing lab on campus. I don't think it's part of the engineering college, but we have one. And I went to the sewing lab and kind of awkwardly raised my hand and asked if anybody could help me. And a student there, she was just finishing up her project. And we sat down together. We sewed this sock, which is not too dissimilar from the sock we sell today. I went to Radio Shack and bought a couple of lights, and then went over to the spot on campus where the film students hang out and kind of did the same thing. I raised my hand. I'm like, hey, can somebody help me? I need to make a little video. And it was just a really great opportunity. We spent the other few $100s on a breadboard prototype. And just the first few $100s kind of kicked in motion what Owlet is today. So I want to talk a little bit about Owlet today. Let me just go back in my notes here. I started Owlet because I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. My co-founders are fathers as well. And I remember walking outside of the hospital and for the first time realizing that everything that was going on in the hospital was now up to me. I was the doctor, the nurse, the dietitian. You go from feeling like a patient, they bring you food, they check in on you, to realizing you're the caregiver. And I had gone through more training to get a driver's license than I did to become a dad. On top of that, we were really concerned that our kids might have a congenital heart defect that my wife has. She's had 3 heart surgeries. And when she was a baby, they didn't know anything was wrong. They sent her home from the hospital. And 10 days later, her mom just had a feeling that something was off, that she needed to go check. So she ran into the room. And it was just at the moment where my wife was crashing. She was gray and not moving. And they rushed her to the hospital and did heart surgery that day that saved her life. And I remember I couldn't shake that thought. We were visiting her cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, she was fine and healthy to get pregnant, but our kids might have the same thing, and I just couldn't shake it. There's 28,000 babies that pass away unexpectedly every year between the last trimester of pregnancy and the first 6 months of life. These are healthy babies otherwise, and this doesn't include all of the stuff that happens in the hospital. This is what happens at home. And you take that with an exhausted new parent that gets, the average parent gets less than 5 hours of sleep at night, and there's a lot of worry and anxiety. And I remember talking with my friend who was working as a nurse at the University of Utah Hospital, and he was telling me about this technology they use in the hospital called pulse oximetry. It's that little red light that they put on your finger. A lot of you have it in your rings and your watches today, but through an LED light and a photodiode, you can tell what someone's heart rate is, how well they're breathing, and it empowers doctors and nurses in the hospital to know when to go check on their patients, and saves thousands of lives every year. And I remember thinking, like, wow, if I had access to something like that, baby monitors are great, but you kind of have to monitor the monitor to know your child's okay. So this would be something that could actually proactively tell parents when they need to go check on baby. And they use this technology in the hospital for babies. They either put it on their finger or their hand, their forehead or their foot. And we thought, okay, the hand's probably going to be difficult. The forehead, we're not going to put a monitor on the forehead. But the foot seems like a good place. And we came up with this little sock design. You can see it here on the slides. It's just a snuggly little sock that wraps around their foot. It uses the same technology they use in the hospital, but it's wireless. It's 100th the size. It's a 10th the cost, and just as accurate as the hospital monitors to help monitor baby. The Owlet Smart Sock is our flagship product today. It's sold in Target and Best Buy, Buy Buy Baby, every major retailer in the US. And we just launched the newest version of our sock technology called the Dream Sock in the United States. We've added to the portfolio. We now have the Owlet Cam. A lot of parents would buy the sock and a camera, and they had kind of 2 different apps that they were checking. And so what we realized we needed to do is also build a camera so they could see baby, hear baby, know that they were okay, all with one click of a button in the app. So we added the Owlet Smart Cam. This is a Wi-Fi connected camera that goes into the same app as the Owlet Smart Sock. In addition to that, Owlet has the largest data set of infant sleep that's ever been collected. We have more information about baby's sleep state, their quality, sleep times than anybody else, and we developed a smart digital sleep coach that helps parents get their baby to sleep through the night, helps them track their baby's sleep, know how much their baby slept and how many times they woke up. and that's called Dream Lab. It's also in the Owlet app. So that's what's available today. We're also working on continuing research and innovation. The next product we're excited to release is called the Owlet Pregnancy Band. This is a wearable monitor for pregnancy. It uses completely passive technology to track baby's heartbeat, mom's heart rate, and mom's sleep position to help monitor pregnancy during that last trimester, to help parents know when they need to go check in with their doctor. This was also incubated by a group of BYU students. We hired a group of interns. We found an office. We were a startup, but we got another building outside of our startup for them to kind of incubate this idea. And it was a couple industrial designers and a mechanical engineer and an electrical engineer from BYU that kind of incubated this concept. The first month that we announced the band, we had 200,000 women sign up to beta test it, and it won Best of Wearable Technology at CES, started by a few interns at BYU. And you know, we develop a lot of technology, but it's not just technology for technology's sake. We really believe that technology can solve fundamental problems in parenting and empower them with information and insights that, you know, ultimately will help them provide better care at home. We've now monitored well over 1 million babies, and we've been voted the best baby monitor every year since we launched in 2016. I'm really proud of our team. You know, one of the highlights of starting Owlet, we went public in July, literally starting in a garage in South Provo to monitoring over 1 million babies and going public on the New York Stock Exchange. And this is all great. This is kind of the overview that I give of Owlet, but just like Instagram is a highlight reel of, you know, someone's life, it doesn't necessarily reflect all of the failure and sometimes in some cases the repeated failures that come with starting a company. And those failures are usually what make us stronger and help us ultimately succeed from. So I want to talk a little bit more about our startup journey and specifically our journey at BYU and some of the failure that we encountered as we were starting Owlet. So you can see here, this is our first office space in South Provo, right here. And then up to the right, you can see the first competition we won at BYU. When I thought about what to share here at BYU, I reflected back on my time here, both being a student and a co-founder. And you know, it was interesting because all of my favorite stories are the ones that, at the time, they were the most painful stories. It reminded me of a time where a friend of mine, while I was here at BYU, sent me a message and said, "Hey, I don't know why, but I felt like I should share this TED Talk with you." And this is a friend that was not sentimental at all. He's pretty rowdy. I've never received another sentimental text message from this friend, but I clicked on the link and the title said Catherine Schultz on being wrong. And you know, at first I was pretty offended. I was like, what is, you know, does he think something's wrong with Owlet or I'm, you know, have I offended him in some way? And little did I know this would become kind of the theme of my life for the next 10 years as we were starting Owlet. Schultz, who titles herself as a wrongologist, says in her TED Talk, the miracle of your mind isn't that you can see the world as it is, but that you can see the world as it isn't. For good or ill, we generate these incredible stories about the world around us, and in turn, the world turns around and astonishes us. If you really want to rediscover and wonder, you need to step outside of that tiny, terrified space of rightness and look out at the vastness and complexity and mystery of the universe and be able to say, wow, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. When we finished our first prototypes with Owlet, we thought the next natural stage was, hey, let's launch pre-sales. You guys have seen Kickstarter. You're all familiar with Kickstarter. We decided to kind of do our own Kickstarter on our website. And what a lot of companies do is they get media attention, and that helps kind of get eyeballs on their Kickstarter so that they can fund the project. And we didn't know how to do that. We figured the best way to do it would be to just fly to the New York Times and go in the building and show them some prototypes of what we had made, and then they would write a story about it. Seemed pretty simple to us. So 2 of us flew to New York, and then 2 of us flew to San Francisco. And I still remember getting out of the subway. You know, we'd done a red-eye flight. I was so excited to go to the New York Times and pitch this concept. And we walk in the building, and all you see are security guards, right? It's like nobody gets in the New York Times. And building after building, we went to all these media outlets, and they'd send security, or we had a few people ask, like, how did you get in here? And we would get kicked out, building after building. We didn't get to talk to a single journalist. But while we were there, we were expressing our frustration to some friends, and those friends connected us to other people who knew a few journalists. We actually got into TechCrunch. And the TechCrunch writer met with us and decided to pick up the story. And from that one TechCrunch article, we got CNBC to cover it. Eventually, the New York Times did cover the story. We were in Time Magazine. It was really cool. But it started with just this horrible failure. We felt like bumpkins from, Farmington, Utah, that didn't know how the world worked. But because we tried and we were out there and we were moving, that failure led to some small adjustments, which eventually led to success. And that's kind of, I think, something in entrepreneurship that really fascinates me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about being wrong, how failure can lead to success. And as engineers, we often see the world as black and white, problems to be solved. But I've learned that oftentimes, in fact, most times, failure can be a crucial stepping stone on that journey to success. And I want to talk a little bit about BYU's motto. BYU's motto, as we all know, is enter to learn. I think it's still enter to learn, go forth to serve. The last time I checked. To be honest, when I was in college, I thought this was kind of a boring motto. I was like, man, can't it be something like change the world or make a dent in the universe? But it's become my model for entrepreneurship, and I've learned to really love what this represents. In fact, I think it's the simplest and most profound model for innovation because it has both a method and a direction and a purpose, and it's grounded in truth. If you always apply to your projects this motto, you'll ask yourself, how is this going to change someone's life? If you're working on a capstone project or you're trying to create a new technology, how is this going to change someone's life? Who am I serving? And you'll spend all of your time learning from them and what's going to best serve them. This statement alone encapsulates what I would say are over 100 books on innovation and entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. There's a method there called the lean startup method. If you've heard of this method, this is a popular entrepreneurship philosophy in Silicon Valley. And it's essentially this. It's quickly failing or learning and iterating your way to success. So for some of the real engineers out there, it's kind of like the bisectional method or the interval halving method. You use bounds and guesses to lead you to the right conclusions and the right outcomes. And the whole premise is that you quickly learn how to best serve your customers. There's no business that can succeed unless you're actually serving someone. You're delivering a service to a customer. So this is the key to success. Enter to learn, go forth to serve, especially in entrepreneurship. The other thing I think that's really stood out to me through this journey is that the path of learning is not linear. The path to success is not linear. It's ups and downs, it's twists and turns. If a distant high school friend of mine were to describe my time at Owlet, they would say he had an idea, he invented Owlet, now they're in Target, right? What they would probably leave out are the countless all-nighters, the failed prototypes, the failed marketing launches, and the red-eye flights that we took. They would leave out the setbacks that took years to overcome. And when we see success, we often misinterpret it as either lucky or easily understood. And while there's plenty of luck involved at Owlet, I don't think it serves us to look at the path of learning and success in this way, because we might be on the path to success and feel like we're failing and give up too early. I have another good friend that was here at BYU. I went to high school with him. He started a company called Pura. And if you go to a jazz game, Pura sponsors every one of the three-pointers in the Vivint Arena today. It's a really successful company. For 7 years, they were working on prototype after failed prototype. They'd launched and relaunched the product. And just in the last 2 years, it's really taken off, and it's now $1 billion company. And I, halfway through their journey, I kind of wanted to tell them to give up. I was like, man, it just doesn't seem like it's going your way. But the path to success is not linear. One of the first projects I was given my freshman year at BYU was we had to build a small car that was powered by a chemical process. And the team that was, the competition was set up in a way that the team that could they could best predict the distance of the car based on the amount of chemicals that went into the reactor won the competition. And I still remember sitting in Josh Staker's apartment at BYU, and we were working on this car. We'd spent days working on it. It was consuming all of our time. We had a bunch of other classes. We were on our 6th hour in his apartment eating rice and hot dogs, and we could not get this thing to move. We'd put all this effort into designing it, and it wouldn't, we'd start the reaction and it wouldn't actually propel itself forward. And I still remember we were just about to give up, and his hand fell on the car, and he kind of pulled it back and let go. And the rubber band that got a little bit of torque when he pulled the wheels back actually kind of propelled it forward. And then the chemical reaction started, and the car went. It was like the simplest little thing. But from there, we realized, hey, if we give it a little bit of inertia, then we can use the chemical reaction to propel it forward, and it became a really successful car in the competition. So this is a quote we're likely all familiar with, but from Thomas Edison. He says, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that it won't work." And I believe that doing anything, you have to get really comfortable with failure. This is one of my favorite stories. About Sylvester Stallone. If you've all seen the Rocky movies, which I'm sure we all have, Stallone moved to New York City in the 1970s to pursue his dream of being an actor. However, all he seemed to face was rejection, failure, and a string of people telling him he talked funny, walked funny, and couldn't act. He was broke at the time, and it was during this period that he was forced to sell his dog for $40 just to pay for his electricity bill. He had been rejected 1,500 times by talent scouts, agents, and everyone in the film industry that he could get a meeting with. He would sit for hours on end in offices just to wait to see if there was a person that could meet with him that would ultimately reject him again. He did this repeatedly, over and over. Eventually, this wore on Stallone. He was broke and homeless, and he lived and slept in the New Jersey Port Authority bus terminal for 3 weeks while trying to scrimp and save money together for an apartment. He was just about as desperate as anyone could be in their lives. After writing the script for Rocky, he was offered a tremendous amount of money, with one caveat, that he not star in his own film. The offer was raised as high as $325,000 with the condition that he not act in the film. He refused, time and time again. Eventually, he accepted just $35,000 and a percentage of the film's stake. So it's not just Thomas Edison, and Sylvester Stallone, but Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Group, which runs hundreds of companies, says, "Face failure head on and don't be afraid of it, and people will support and welcome you even more." I think we need to change about how we think about failure. If there's a movement I would want to start, it would be about normalizing failure and rethinking or repositioning how we think about it. Failures are a key part of success, but in order to reap the most benefits from failure, you have to learn from it. You have to be resilient in the face of it and accept it. To me, failure is something I've actually grown to love, because more often than not, the follow-on to failure has been an even more incredible success than the original effort intended. Almost 10 years ago, I met some of the smartest people that I'd ever met, and we started a company called Owlet. It wasn't really a company then, just more of an idea and a mission. And even with a big mission and purpose, it has not protected us from failure. I just want to let that sink in a little bit. I mean, Owlet has, I think, one of the most simple and easy to understand value propositions in the world. It helps parents keep their child safe. And even with that, we went through a lot of failure. Failures are key stepping stones to ultimate success in engineering and entrepreneurship. And I want to share some of our failures at Owlet. I've picked some engineering examples. I think it's appropriate. We could pick from any kind of part of Owlet and go through stories. But the first one that comes to mind is in 2014. We had moved the company to New York. We were living in New York at the time, going through an accelerator program there. And we had just finished these pre-sales. I talked about how we went out and got this media attention. We had over 2,000 people pre-order the Smart Sock. And we'd been working for over a year to finalize this concept. We were so excited to finally ship the product. And we tried to get it out as fast as possible. So we parallel pathed everything from the development to the testing. Everything was running in parallel. And when we got the final samples that were being manufactured, and we started to take them into homes to test them, we found two really big problems with these prototypes. The first was the flexible circuitry. So we had to use flexible circuitry that could wrap around the baby's foot and connect the components together so it was small enough to fit on a baby's foot. And we'd done testing on the flexible circuitry, but not enough testing. And what we realized is you wrapped it around a baby's foot 20 or 30 times, the traces that connected the components together in this flexible circuit board started to break. And as soon as those traces break, the unit didn't work at all. And then the second big realization we had is that we'd done range testing between the phone and the sock to make sure that it was, enough range that it would work in the home. And we missed two big insights. One was that when you actually strapped it on a baby's foot, seems really obvious now, but when you strapped it on a baby's foot, the water in a 6-month-old baby's foot, they've got these big chunky feet, would dampen the signal. And so it took our range from 50 to 60 feet down to like 3 feet being strapped to a baby's foot. On top of that, we live in Utah. All the homes are made out of wood. They're wood framed. When we moved to New York, a lot of these apartments have concrete and steel in the walls. And so the signal wouldn't travel through the concrete and steel, especially when it was on a baby's foot. And so we had two huge problems. And we'd already manufactured 2,000 units to ship out to our customers. And we were running out of money. And I still remember sitting down with my co-founders. We decided to head out of the city. We went out to Queens, which is still the city, but out of Manhattan, to a place called George's Diner. And we sat down, and I explained the situation. I said, guys, we've got to throw away all 2,000 units. They can't be reworked. We've got to throw them away. We're running out of money, and we've got all these customers that are waiting for a product. How long can you guys go without taking a paycheck? We just started paying ourselves a little bit of money, and it was really cool. The commitment from the whole team was obvious. They all raised their hands. Some people could only go a month. Others offered a year. And we said, okay, we're gonna do everything we can to overcome this, to raise a little bit of money from investors and to solve this problem. And so everybody kind of like put their hands in, and we said, go Owlet, we're gonna do this. And we sent an email out to all of our customers, and we said, okay, we messed up. The product that we were gonna deliver this month is not working. You can click this button for a refund, and you can click this button to continue to support the project. And I thought for sure, these are parents, they need to use the product with their kids. They're going to get refunds, and we're going to be totally out of money. And the exact opposite happened. We had so many notes from customers saying, we love what you guys are doing. We believe in the mission of this company. Keep our money. 90% of parents chose to keep the money in the project, and we got a lot of notes from parents saying, we'll use it on our second child. So it was a really cool experience for us. We learned a lot from this painful experience. Eventually, we were able to get the product to market. But a lot of good came from this experience. We realized that we needed to have a better product development process, and our product development process changed from that day. The second thing we realized is that we needed this, you see this round circular thing, it's called our base station. So this relays the information from the sock, converts it to Wi-Fi so that parents can access the information anywhere. And it also acts as the backup alarm for the product, which is really important because not every notification gets pushed through the phone. So it became a more reliable product as well, and really changed the product altogether. I think had we shipped the original design, even if we didn't have those two issues, the company would not have survived because the experience wouldn't have been there. Okay, here's another big failure we had. Early on, we were told by some of the top pulse oximetry experts in the world, you can't get accurate pulse oximetry with low power. You have to be plugged into a power source. These hospital monitors, they're big, bulky boxes. They have cords that go into the wall. And the way that they overcome their signal to noise ratio is throwing a lot of power at the problem. They shine the LEDs brighter. They have a lot of processing power. And so we overcame these two issues, but then as we started to do more testing, we realized that in a lot of situations, the sensor itself was not very accurate. We were onto our 14th iteration of the circuit board. And I still remember getting a message from my co-founder, and he's like, hey, this isn't my technology co-founder. He was all in, he's like, I'm gonna solve this. It was our business co-founder, and he said, hey, we need to ship an MVP. We should just ship this without oxygen in it. Let's ship what we have. We've got to get a product to market. And Zach, my technology co-founder, said, no way. There's these new chips that just came out from, smartphones were starting to explode at this time, and they had new low power, high processing chips that had just gotten to the market. He said, we're going to try these chips. And so the team implemented this new chip. They worked on some new algorithms, and we put a new sensor in the product as well that could help us filter out bad readings due to motion. And eventually we were able to overcome this, and we started beta testing, and it turned into a great success. I remember I was just telling the deans that we were beta testing the product, and a friend of ours was testing the product with his own kids at BYU. And he said, hey, we keep getting these low oxygen notifications. And we said, well, we're still working through kind of the accuracy of the oxygen. And thanks for testing. It's probably inaccurate. And he said, well, we lost our oldest baby to SIDS. And if you could just double check, that would mean a lot. So we sent all the back end data to our medical advisor and had him look at it. And the next day he gave us a call and he said, hey, that baby needs to go into the hospital right away, because she can't regulate her breathing. She just stops breathing at night and her oxygen drops significantly. And he said, you can tell it's accurate because the heart rate's following the oxygen dips. So they took their baby in and they found out that she really couldn't regulate her breathing. She would stop breathing at night. She had to be on oxygen for 3 years, and just didn't have, her nervous system wasn't developed enough to be able to actually remember to breathe at night. And they believe it saved her life. And this friend of mine at BYU worked just below Owlet, same building for a lot of years. It's one of my favorite stories. On top of that, we were able to validate the accuracy. Owlet is a 100th the size and a 10th the cost of these hospital monitors. But we've tested this in multiple different labs, and we recently finished a study at Walter Reed, which is the national hospital. And we compared this little sock to these big hospital monitors, and the statisticians there concluded that there was no statistical difference in accuracy, meaning the Owlet was just as accurate as what's in the hospital. And we were able to overcome that. The third failure that I'll share is what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. It's feature creep. So as we were waiting for all of these hardware changes, the mobile team was getting bored. They wanted to build stuff, so they kept inventing new features to add to the product. We were tracking diapers, we were tracking sleep, we were tracking feedings at night, and this app became overloaded, it became clunky, and as we went out to test the app with parents, they said, I don't even know how to use this thing. It's too complicated, there's too much information here, I don't know what to do as a parent. And we took that to heart. We took a step back and said, okay, how can we really focus this on what matters most? And that's when we really adopted what's called a Pareto list at Owlet, which is basically you survey your customers and you figure out what matters most to them. And it came back that what parents wanted, they wanted to know their baby's heart rate, they wanted to know their oxygen levels, and they wanted to know when they needed to get out of bed to go check on them. That's all that mattered. So we slimmed the whole focus of the product down to those few features, and we were able to get the focus of the team, which allowed us to increase the reliability of the product. And we've won a lot of awards and have a higher customer satisfaction rating on our Smart Sock than Apple does on their smartphones, which is awesome. So I want to finish here with the second part of Sylvester Stallone. So Sylvester eventually got his dog back. The film grossed over $200 million in the box office, and Stallone is the only actor in U.S. history to have starred in a box office #1 film 5 consecutive decades in a row. Things don't always go as planned. I think he ended up having to pay like $15,000 to get his dog back from the original owner. But he says it was worth every penny. Things don't always go as planned. I think the engineers, innovators, and entrepreneurs who are most likely to succeed are the ones who can look out at the universe and say, wow, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you're on the path to being right. At Owlet, we're solving really big challenges for what I think is the most important role on earth, which is parenting. And we constantly ask ourselves that. Where are we wrong? Where are we failing? How can we learn from this situation? So I just want everybody to remember BYU's motto, enter to learn, go forth to serve. Thank you so much for having me here today.